Okay, chapter 7, drill. This chapter talks about drilling. Have you guys ever been in a situation where you're trying to learn something, but there's so many aspects of the skill that it's just overwhelming and you're like, dude, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore? Well, a good way to solve that problem is through drilling. This is something that we've been taught a lot in school, but most of the time, every time we drill in school, we hate it because we don't know why we're drilling. With ultra learning, you have a motive behind what you're trying to learn. And so obviously learning the subject is going to be beneficial for you and you're going to have the motivation to do it. So in this chapter, it talks about five ways to drill. The first one is called time slicing. What is time slicing? Well, I'll use two examples. The first one, imagine a musician. They have a whole timeline of music that they are playing, right? And I'm sure a lot of you have played an instrument and let's say you have the intro down, but then you get to the first chorus and you're like, "Oh man, I this part is so hard." And you keep messing up, right? So what do? Naturally, you isolate the chorus, you practice the chorus over and over and over until you get it perfectly. Then you insert it back into the song and you play the whole song again. And maybe you get all the way past the chorus, a couple more, and then you hit the bridge later down the road and you're like, oh, that needs work. So you isolate the bridge, you work on the bridge, and then you put it back into the song, you play the whole song, and then you have it way better than you did the first time. So that's isolating. In sales, it's the same way. In sales, there's like framework, what questions are you asking, how is your tonality, facial expressions, body language, word choice. There's so many different things that you're working on. And then there's also sections of time. So there's different parts of the conversation. There's the build up, the getting to know each other. Then you have you're asking them a certain set of questions, then you're closing them, then they're giving you objections, right? So there's different parts of time. And so isolating one part of time that you struggle in the most is going to be a super beneficial way for you to learn. So time slicing. The second drill is cognitive. Like I mentioned, there's different aspects like word choice, questions, tonality, facial expressions, body language, etc., framework. And so these are all cognitive things that are going on at the same time, in the same moment. Every single part of the call, you're focusing on every single aspect of it throughout the entirety of it. So isolating a certain cognitive function is going to help you work on it, improve it, and then you can do the whole thing again. So isolating tonality. So you just focus on simply tonality. You just let the other stuff go somewhere else. You push it to the side and you just focus on that one thing, right? Except tonality, you need to be speaking at the same time, right? What do you do if you have two cognitive functions happening at the same time? That's where drill 3 comes in. It's called the copycat. So let's say you're trying to work on your tone of voice when you're speaking or when you're having a conversation. You have to obviously be saying words. So instead of focusing cognitively on what you're saying, you can maybe write out the words you're going to say and read it, but focus on tonality as you read. That way, you're not using your mind on the words, you're using your mind on the tonality. That's a good way to use the copycat. So you're copying this stuff, so you don't have to think about this stuff. And you're simply focusing on the tonality. And you can switch that around the other way. So maybe you don't care about the tonality, you can do monotone, but or whatever voice vocal sounds you want to make and read a certain and like figure out what words to say, right? Copycat. Drill 4 is the magnifying glass method. This is where you have a skill that you're trying to learn where you can't isolate, right? You can't separate from the skill. So instead, you just magnify one aspect of it. You just really focus on a certain part. So, um, again, like tonality, you can just focus on that for most of the time, and then you can go to the next one. Forget about tonality and just like focus on this part, focus on the next part. Boom. Drill 5 is called prerequisite training. This is when you just dive straight in to the skill you're trying to learn without knowing the skill. So you go into the skill, you try to accomplish it, and then inevitably you'll probably suck at it or you'll do poorly, but you'll know what skills you need to learn or what prerequisites you have to work on. As soon as you figure out maybe the three fundamental ones, you'll work on one, then the second one, and the third one. You go back, try to do the skill. You'll probably do better, and then you'll realize, oh, I should also learn this part. So then you work on that, and you go back and do it, and you go back and forth. Why would you want to do this? Well, a lot of the times when we know we want to accomplish a skill or we want to learn a certain skill or subject or whatever, there's things we think we need to know, but then when we actually go and try to do the skill, we're like, oh, actually, I needed this set of skills, not the one that I learned. So by doing the skill first, you can find out exactly what skills you need to learn. Maybe you already know the skills too, or some of them, but you really don't know some of them. So like you can be more wise about what aspects of the skill you choose to learn. This is basically just mindful drilling. You're just using your brain before you start to drill to decide what kind of drilling you need to do and how to do it. That's it. And by being mindful about what you're doing, you can learn way faster and save a lot of time. Drilling is the opposite of what we learned about the other day, which was direct learning. This is where you're directly doing the skill. Drilling is the opposite. You're not doing the whole skill. You're doing a little itsy bitsy portion of it. So a good way to balance them is to go back and forth between the two. Directly drilling it, the whole entirety of the skill, directly interacting with the skill or the concept or the knowledge that you're trying to learn, and then going and drilling certain parts of it. So you're going back and forth. So I hope this was helpful for you guys. This was a super good chapter, in my opinion, and super helpful. So I hope you guys can drill whatever you're trying to learn this next week into your mind and just become better every day.